The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Krelvax spread his forearms wide, his laughter echoing off the crystalline walls. Around him, representatives from 100 worlds joined in, chittering, buzzing, and roaring their amusement. At the center of it all stood Captain Sarah Chen, alone. One ship? Krelvax's voice dripped with mockery. Humanity sends one ship to answer our ultimatum? He turned to address the assembled council. 3 cycles ago, we discovered these humans. They barely crawl between their own star system's planets. They burn chemical fuel like savages, and now, facing the combined might of the Galactic Armada, they offer us this. On the holographic display, humanity's answer rotated slowly. The vessel looked ancient even by human standards. A retrofitted colony ship called the Defiance, barely 200 meters long. Compared to the kilometer-long dreadnoughts of the Armada, it was a child's toy. Sarah kept her face neutral, though her heart hammered. She thought of Earth, of the 3 billion souls who'd placed their hope in her mission. The Council had given humanity a simple choice: surrender complete autonomy and become a protected species, or face annihilation. They had 1 week to decide. Earth had chosen defiance. Captain Chen, Krelvax continued, his tone shifting to false sympathy. Surely your leaders understand what they face. Our armada numbers 5,000 warships. We have cracked planets. We have boiled oceans. What can one outdated vessel possibly— With respect, Ambassador, Sarah interrupted, her voice steady. You asked for our answer. The Defiance is our answer. Another wave of laughter swept the chamber. Then you choose extinction, Krelvax said flatly. The Armada will arrive at your homeworld in 7 solar days. I suggest you use that time to make peace with whatever gods you believe in. Sarah bowed slightly, not in submission, but in acknowledgement. 7 days. We'll be ready. As she turned to leave, Krelvax called after her. Tell me, Captain, does your ship even have weapons? Sarah paused at the doorway. A small smile touched her lips. We have what we need. The laughter followed her all the way to her shuttle. 6 days later, the Defiance hung in space at the edge of Earth's solar system. Inside the cramped bridge, Sarah watched the countdown timer tick away. Around her, a crew of just 47 souls worked at their stations with quiet determination. Fleet incoming, announced Lieutenant Marcus Webb from Tactical. Sensors reading. Jesus, Captain. 4,937 vessels. The entire Armada. Through the view screen, space itself seemed to tear open as the alien fleet emerged from hyperspace. Ship after ship materialized. Massive cruisers bristling with weapons, carriers deploying fighter swarms. Dreadnoughts that could glass a continent with a single volley. The communications channel crackled to life. Krelvax's face filled the screen, his expression triumphant. Captain Chen, I admit I didn't expect you to show. Where is your vaunted Earth fleet? Your defensive stations? Your last-minute miracle? You're looking at it, Sarah replied calmly. Krelvax's face twisted with disgust. Then you are fools. Armada, advance. Target the human homeworld. Let us be done with this. 5,000 warships began their final approach, engines burning like a constellation of angry stars. Sarah took a deep breath. Mr. Webb, initiate Phoenix Protocol. Phoenix Protocol initiated, Captain. Marcus confirmed, his fingers dancing across his console. All systems green. Capacitors at maximum charge. The Defiance hung motionless as the Armada closed in. Weapons locking. Targeting systems screaming warnings that the humans were in range. Vulnerable. Dead. They're not even moving, one of Krelvax's officers reported, confusion in his voice. The ship is just sitting there. Then destroy it. Krelvax snarled. Fire. 1,000 energy beams lanced through space, converging on the Defiance. But in the microsecond before impact, something changed. The human ship blazed to life, not with engines, not with shields, with something else entirely. A light that didn't belong to the visible spectrum. A radiation that made every sensor in the Armada scream in alarm. What is that? Krelvax whispered. Sarah smiled. You wanted to know if we had weapons, Ambassador. We don't. What we have is much simpler. We have the sun. The Defiance had never been a warship. It had been converted into something the galaxy had never seen. A stellar energy collector and redirector. For 6 months, humanity's best scientists had worked in secret, designing a system that could harvest energy directly from Sol and focus, It with perfect precision, the beams that had been meant to destroy the Defiance struck its hull and simply stopped, absorbed, converted, stored, and then released. All power to the array, Sarah commanded. Show them what humanity brings to the stars. The Defiance became a star unto itself, burning not with fire, but with captured sunlight compressed into weapons-grade fury. Fire, Sarah whispered, and the heavens burned. The first beam struck the dreadnought Eternal Dominance directly through its command deck. The ship, a vessel that had conquered 40 worlds, simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a mountain of armor and firepower. The next it was a rapidly expanding cloud of superheated gas. The Armada had no time to react. From the Defiance, dozens of concentrated solar beams lanced out in perfect geometric patterns. Each beam carried the fury of a star, focused through humanity's most desperate innovation. Krelvax watched in horror as his fleet began to die. Evasive maneuvers, he screamed. All ships, scatter formation. But the Defiance had been positioned with mathematical precision. The humans had spent weeks calculating trajectories, orbital mechanics, and fleet formations. They'd studied every battle the Armada had ever fought, analyzed every tactic. 5,000 ships tried to disperse. They might as well have tried to outrun light itself. Cruisers exploded in chains, their fusion cores breaching as solar fire cut through their hulls like paper. Fighter swarms evaporated by the hundreds, their pilots dead before they could even register the threat. The massive carriers, pride of the Armada, broke apart as beams carved through their launch bays, detonating thousands of tons of fuel and munitions. Inside the Defiance, alarms blared as power levels fluctuated wildly. Capacitors at 40%, Marcus reported, his voice tight. Heat sinks approaching critical. Captain, we can't sustain this much longer. Sarah's hands gripped her armrests. How many ships destroyed? 732 confirmed kills. Another 300 damaged, still thousands more. Too many. Through the view screen, the Armada was reorganizing. Despite their losses, they still had overwhelming numbers. Energy shields flickered to life across the fleet. Point defense systems activated, trying to intercept the beams. They're adapting, Sarah muttered. Mr. Webb, rotate firing pattern Delta 7. Target their command ships. Pattern Delta 7, aye, Marcus confirmed. The Defiance shifted its assault, beams now sweeping across the Armada's formation like a reaper's scythe. But the alien shields were designed to handle energy weapons, just not at this intensity. The beams cut through, but slower now, buying the Armada precious seconds. Krelvax had regained his composure. His voice boomed across all channels. All ships, concentrate fire on that single vessel. Everything we have, now. 4,000 remaining warships obeyed. The space between the Armada and the Defiance filled with energy beams, missiles, and kinetic rounds. Enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Incoming fire. Marcus shouted. Impact in 15 seconds. Sarah's mind raced. The Defiance had one trick. One desperate gambit that could work exactly once. They'd discussed it during planning. Engineers had called it suicide. Sarah had called it Plan B. Lieutenant Chen, she said, turning to her sister at the engineering station, initiate Event Horizon Protocol. Emma Chen's face went pale. Sarah, that's an order, Em, do it. With trembling hands, Emma began the sequence. Throughout the Defiance, systems that had been kept in standby roared to life. The ship's stellar collectors reversed their polarity, shifting from projection to collection. But they weren't collecting energy from the sun anymore. They were collecting it from the incoming fire. Every beam, every missile, every kinetic round that struck the Defiance was absorbed by the collectors. The ship's hull glowed white-hot as it drank in the Armada's fury. Power levels spiked dangerously. Capacitors at 90%, Emma called out. 100%. 120%. Sarah, we're going to overload. Hold, Sarah commanded. Hold until the last possible second. The Armada poured everything into their assault. Krelvax watched his weapons readouts plummet, ammunition reserves dropping, energy banks depleting. The human ship was absorbing it all, glowing like a miniature star. Why won't it die? Someone whispered on the bridge. Then suddenly, the Defiance stopped absorbing. Capacitors at 170%, Emma said, her voice barely audible. We're past every safety limit. Captain, if we don't release this now, all power to primary array, Sarah said quietly. Single pulse. Full burn. Marcus looked at her, understanding in his eyes. This wasn't just a weapon. This was humanity announcing its arrival to the galaxy. Firing solution locked on Armada Center mass, he confirmed. Sarah stood, her voice carrying to every station on the bridge. For Earth, for humanity's future, fire! The Defiance unleashed everything it had absorbed. The combined power of 5,000 warships, plus the fury of Sol itself in one catastrophic pulse. The beam was wider than a battleship and brighter than a supernova. It tore through the Armada's center like a lance through fog. Ships didn't explode. They simply vanished. Atoms scattered across light years in an instant. The pulse continued, carving through rank after rank of vessels. Shields meant nothing. Armor was meaningless. For 5 eternal seconds, the Defiance burned a highway through the greatest fleet the galaxy had ever assembled. When the light finally faded, 2,000 more ships were gone. The survivors fled. On the Defiance, every system was in the red. Smoke filled the bridge. Half the crew was unconscious from the G-forces. But Sarah Chen stood, watching the Armada break formation and scatter to the edges of the system. "Hail them," she said hoarsely. A moment later, Krelvax's face appeared on screen. He looked broken, his earlier arrogance replaced with something humanity rarely saw in alien eyes: fear. "Ambassador," Sarah said softly, "I think we should renegotiate." The wreckage drifted in silence. Thousands of pieces of once mighty warships tumbled through space, reflecting the distant light of Sul. Escape pods floated among the debris. Krelvax had ordered his surviving ships to recover them before retreating to the edge of the system. The Armada, reduced to barely 2,000 ships, maintained a respectful distance from the Defiance. Inside the human vessel, emergency crews worked frantically. The stellar collectors were fused slag. 3 decks were exposed to vacuum. The reactor was operating at minimum capacity. But the Defiance was still flying, and Earth was still safe. Sarah sat in her command chair, a medical patch on her forehead where she'd struck the console during the final pulse. Around her, the bridge crew ran diagnostics and damage reports. They looked exhausted, traumatized, but alive. "Captain," Marcus said quietly, "we're receiving a transmission from the Armada. Ambassador Krelvax is requesting permission to approach." Sarah smiled despite the pain in her ribs. "Permission granted. But tell him to come alone. One shuttle." 30 minutes later, Krelvax stood on the Defiance's damaged observation deck. Through the reinforced windows, Earth hung in space, a blue marble unmarred by conquest, untouched by the Armada's fury. The ambassador looked smaller somehow, as if defeat had physically diminished him. His 4 arms were held in a gesture Sarah's cultural database identified as submission. "Captain Chen," he began, his voice hollow, "I speak now not as a conqueror, but as a survivor. What you have demonstrated today has never been seen in galactic history. A single ship, a crew of less than 50, has destroyed 3,000 warships and humbled the greatest military force in known space." Sarah nodded but said nothing. She'd learned that silence was often the most powerful response. Krelvax continued, "We came to your world believing you were primitives, savages who stumbled into space without understanding what awaited them. We intended to make you servants, to harness your world's resources for the greater Galactic Council." "And now?" Sarah asked. "Now I understand we were the primitives." Krelvax gestured to the wreckage visible through the windows. "We had advanced technology, yes. Powerful weapons. Numbers beyond counting. But we lacked what you possessed. Desperation married to creativity. The willingness to risk everything on a single impossible idea." He turned to face her fully. "Your species has been spacefaring for what, barely 50 years? And in that time, you conceived of weaponizing a star itself. Not by destroying it. Not by some ancient forbidden technology, but by collecting its light. It is," he paused, searching for words, "elegant, terrifying, brilliant." Sarah's expression softened slightly. "Ambassador, we didn't want this fight. We never wanted to be conquerors or warriors. Humans dream of exploration, of meeting other species, of learning and growing together." She gestured to the debris. This was survival. "Nothing more." "Survival," Krelvax repeated. "Yet in surviving you have changed everything. The Council believed the galaxy was settled, mapped, understood. We thought we knew the limits of what was possible. You have shown us we were wrong. He reached into his robes and produced a small crystalline device. Captain Chen, I am here to offer the Council's formal surrender. The Armada will withdraw from your system immediately. Furthermore, I am authorized to offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Council, not as subjects but as equals. Sarah took the device, feeling its weight. 3 days ago she would have celebrated such an offer. But now, after seeing what the civilized galaxy considered acceptable behavior, she wasn't certain she wanted membership in their club. I'll take your offer to Earth's government, she said carefully. But Ambassador, understand this. Humanity will not forget how you came to us. You arrived as conquerors and left as refugees. If we join your council, it will be as partners, free, independent, and respected. Anything less, and you'll find that the defiance was just our opening statement. Krelvax's face showed what might have been respect. I believe you, Captain, and I suspect the council will agree to any terms you set. He looked out at Earth once more. May I ask you something? The name of your ship, Defiance. Was it always called that? Sarah smiled. No. It was originally the New Horizons, a colony ship meant to carry settlers to Mars. But when we learned you were coming, when we realized what we faced, we renamed her. Because if humanity has learned anything in our short history, it's that we don't kneel easily. Your species is young, Krelvax said thoughtfully. You have barely left your cradle. Yet you have accomplished what mature civilization said was impossible. I wonder what you will achieve in the centuries to come. We'll find out together, Sarah replied, if your council truly wants peace. 3 months later, the Defiance returned to Earth orbit. The ship was battered beyond repair. Engineers said she'd never fly again. But she didn't need to. She'd done her job. Sarah stood on the observation deck one final time, watching shuttles ferry her crew down to the surface. A hero's welcome awaited them. Parades, ceremonies, endless interviews. But she knew the truth would settle in eventually. They'd fought, they'd won, but the cost had been enormous. 47 people had held the line between Earth and annihilation. 2 had died from injuries sustained during the final pulse. Marcus joined her at the window. Ready to go home, Captain? Not quite yet, Sarah said. She pulled up a holographic display showing ship designs, new vessels being constructed in Earth's orbital yards. Humanity wasn't building more weapons. Instead, they were building exploration ships, research vessels, diplomatic cruisers. The galaxy laughed at our one ship, Sarah said softly. But we didn't build the Defiance to prove we could fight. We built her to prove we could survive. Now we're going to prove we can do something even harder. We're going to prove we can make friends. Marcus grinned. Think they're ready for us? Sarah thought of the vast galaxy beyond. Thousands of species, millions of worlds, countless opportunities for humanity to learn, grow, and contribute. The Armada had come to conquer. Humanity would go out to cooperate. They'd better be, she said, because ready or not, here we come, through the window. Earth turned slowly, beautiful, resilient, and now protected by the knowledge that its children could face impossible odds and emerge victorious. The age of humanity among the stars had begun, not with a whimper, not even with a bang, but with the burning light of a star held in human hands and wielded with desperate brilliance.